During my live streams, I've had to make many references to the fact on screen currently. This is called the greater male variability hypothesis, which is more so like an observation about the variability of males per each character. This is typically species regardless, so this doesn't matter for humans specifically. This is something more so of a trend across the animal kingdom. Scientists simply had observed that whatever character it is you choose to study, you tend to find that males will express a greater range of the characteristics per that character. And this is regardless what happens with the frequencies around the mean value. As is quite obvious, we can see that the males have much lower representation surrounding the mean value. And even if the mean values weren't exactly the same for these two distributions, whatever petty differentiation the two have, it is the case that as you slide your evaluation towards the excellence axis, towards the 80th percentile, higher and higher percentiles, the prevalence of men having excellence, having that specific characteristic per that character, will steadily increase until it surpasses women. I'm using males and men interchangeably and women and females interchangeably, which leads to very common sayings like, oh, most chefs are women, but the best chefs are men, or the most good drivers are women, but the best drivers in the world, the F1 drivers, will tend to be men. This isn't exactly just an analysis video of what is the case. This is more so a video about the evolutionary reason for why we might have something like this. It is the case that women have the ability to select for a very narrow and specific sort of characteristic within the male species, as is the case in one of the previous videos that I've made about how 80% of women reproduce historically, but around 40% of men have. It's also the case that precisely because women have such an involvement into the offspring rearing, into developing the next generation, that they interact with the environment, the ecology of the system, a little bit less than males would. This means that males will come across a greater variability of ecology, a greater variability of environment, which would then also make it the case that a greater variability per specific character would be better for you because of the diversity of the things that you're going to encounter out in the environment and your ability to counteract them. Males require greater variance because they are going to encounter greater variance, and greater variance will require that more characteristics, more specific things will solve specific circumstances, and since there's more specific circumstances, you will need to have more specific characteristics. And keep in mind that specific characteristics do not require that everybody in the group has them. Some things are beneficial only when a specific amount of individuals have the advantage. Only when one person in the group of 5, let's say, has the specific advantage. Now let's get into a specific example. Colorblindness is much more prevalent in men, specifically because of red-green colorblindness. And colorblindness persists at 10% of the population at each generation of humans. That is because there is an advantage in interacting with your environment differently. People who have colorblindness will notice different things, different contrasts exist for them. But generally, colorblindness is a detriment, which would make it the case that your default case would not be colorblindness. But once one person out of 10 people has colorblindness, pretty much the entire group has benefited as a result of their ability to interact with the world differently and see higher contrast. There's also a good example by Bret Weinstein where they went with a group of biologists into the jungle to get specific bats that look pretty green. And because Bret Weinstein has blue colorblindness, blue-purple, something like that, he was able to spot the bats much more consistently than everybody else. In the end, the individual that had tallied the most captures of bats or the most spottings of bats was the individual that had blue-purple colorblindness. And here is where you might think that, okay, well, if everybody had that, they would have done even better. However, notice that there would have been diminishing returns, especially considering that it's detrimental in every other case to have blue-purple colorblindness or blue-green or whatever it is that he had. In fact, the same thing can be said about intelligence. Only your leader really needs to be really smart for him to propose the ideas that everybody will just agree to. If everybody was smart, there would be too many ideas conflicting with each other, and you would get nothing done as a result of it. So, in fact, in this scenario, prevalence higher than the one that we have is specifically detrimental, and not intelligence itself being the detriment in question that would make it for it to not pass a specific frequency within your population. That's why intelligence has the specific variability that we see, and of course there's a difference between men and women again. If you find this interesting, I would appreciate you liking and following. I mean, you've watched till the end, haven't you? So